and moving in a formation that looked like jellyfish. One of the sources described it as a, quote, real alien. CNN exclusive reporting of what a U.S. fighter jet pilot saw right before ejecting over Iran.
They enabled the Iranians to shoot down this F-15 fighter jet, which would be a pretty remarkable moment in this conflict, given this was the first instance in which a manned U.S. aircraft was shot down by the Iranians. Iran likely needed help from Russia or China.
This was a textbook rescue operation and was executed based on all accounts that we have right now.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Did Iran just expose a weakness in America's most advanced military technology? CNN is reporting that a U.S. pilot was shot down over Iran, but the bigger question is what he saw right before it happened. Why would an intelligence source describe a drone formation as, quote, a real alien? And if Iran really has a coordinated drone swarm that can overwhelm a U.S. fighter jet, who helped them build it? Russia, China, or both? Because if this report is true, this wasn't just a shoot down. This may have been a warning. Watch closely, because this story gets much worse.
CNN exclusive reporting of what a U.S. fighter jet pilot saw right before ejecting over Iran. His plane was shot down in April, and at the time, President Trump said it was from a shoulder-fired missile. Well, according to sources, the pilot saw multiple Iranian drones swarming and moving in a formation that looked like jellyfish. One of the sources described it as a, quote, real alien.
Stop. A U.S. intelligence source didn't say it looked alien. They said, quote, a real alien. That's not a journalist choosing a dramatic word. That's someone inside the debrief who has seen classified drone footage before and struggled to describe what the pilot told them. When insiders run out of military vocabulary and use the word alien, it tells you this wasn't a normal drone swarm. It was something they had never seen. Remember the words real alien, because everything that follows makes it even scarier.
Sources speaking to my colleagues Zach Cohen and Katie Bo Lillis, that fighter pilot was later rescued by special forces.
CNN senior national security reporter Zachary Cohn is here with us in the Situation Room with his exclusive reporting. Zach, tell us a little bit more about what the pilot described seeing and how the intelligence community is reacting.
Yes, sources say that this description really shocked U.S. intelligence officials who were conducting this debrief of this pilot who was shot down and then subsequently rescued after they were shot down over Iran in April. And our sources say that the pilot was talking about witnessing multiple drones that were interconnected, with the larger drones operating above the smaller ones acting sort of as legs, all of these drones moving in unison, which suggested that there was interconnectivity between them. And that's something that we're told was not something the intelligence community, the U.S. intelligence community, was really tracking as far as Iran's drone capabilities are concerned. Another source characterizing the pilot's account as describing a minefield of drones, and initial reports did acknowledge the possibility that these drones could have in some way enabled the Iranians to shoot down this F-15 fighter jet, which would be a pretty remarkable moment in this conflict, given this was the first instance in which a manned U.S. aircraft was shot down by the Iranians.
Let that sink in. In decades of tension with Iran, from the hostage crisis to proxy wars and sanctions, Iran has never shot down a manned American aircraft. This wasn't a drone. It was a piloted jet with a human inside. That detail gets mentioned in passing, but it is the real headline. The rules have changed. If these jellyfish drones made it happen, Iran didn't just shoot down a plane. They introduced a new weapon to the world and used an American pilot as the test.
Now, there are some questions as to whether or not this pilot did actually see what he described as seeing in this debrief. For one, the pilot was concussed from being shot down, and two, this was actually the second time he had been shot out of the sky during the weeks-long conflict with Iran. He was one of the pilots that was hit by friendly fire over Kuwait just a few weeks before that, too. But all that taken into account, this did spark a debate inside the U.S. intelligence community about Iran's drone program and Iran's drone capabilities, and if they were able to achieve this new capability as far as the U.S. was concerned, how did they manage to do that without intelligence agencies seeing that happening? And one idea that is the most likely scenario, if this was in fact the reality of what the pilot saw, that Iran likely needed help from Russia or China in order to do this. Now, there's a trail of evidence that suggests Russia and China have both provided drone technology to Iran, and that's something sources described to me as really the biggest indicator of how Iran could have achieved this capability.
Interesting reporting. Good work, Zach Cohn. Thank you,
you and
very
Bo
much.
Lillis. Thank you. All right, back with us here in the Situation Room is CNN military analyst and retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton. I wonder just what your reaction is to what you heard from Zach's reporting here, what this pilot purportedly saw, and the reaction from the intelligence community, the surprise.
Yeah, surprise is always a bad thing in the intelligence business, right, Pam? And so when you look at, what the pilot allegedly saw and Zach's reporting, and you combine all these factors, what is distinctly possible is that there is a new technology, or at least new tactics being employed here. What this is similar to is basically there's a concept that even the U.S. Air Force has of having a manned aircraft serve as kind of the quarterback of a combined manned, unmanned fleet that would go after a set of targets. Now this is different because, according to this report, the basic idea would be that the quarterback is in essence played by a larger drone, and that larger drone would then be controlled by a ground controller somewhere in Iran, presumably. The way in which this would work would require a lot of sophisticated tactics and techniques to have been developed, and it's most likely, as Zach was reporting, that these tactics and techniques were developed either in China or Russia, or a combination thereof, and then potentially adapted by the Iranians for the purpose.
You're a retired U.S. Air Force colonel. How do you defend against this so-called jellyfish formation of drones?
So that's going to be a real challenge for the Air Force and really all flying entities out there, because a formation like this, first of all, it was a surprise to the pilot when he saw something like this. And then the other part of it is that the whole effort behind this is to create something that overwhelms the natural defenses that the pilot has, as well as the electronic defenses that the aircraft would have. For example,
Did you catch that? A retired Air Force colonel said on camera that a US F-15, one of the most advanced fighter jets ever built, has no defense against this. Its radar warning receivers, electronic countermeasures, chaff, flares, and decades of engineering are not enough. This formation is designed to overwhelm every system on the aircraft. It floods the sensors, jams the electronics, and gives the pilot too many targets to fight manually. The colonel said the only answer is integrating artificial intelligence into defensive systems. That means a human pilot cannot react fast enough. We now need machines to fight their machines. That is where we are.
Have. For example, an aircraft has something known as a radar warning receiver, and it's designed to really take a look at all the radar inputs that are coming that are possible threats to the aircraft. When you have multiple inputs or no input at all, but a threat like that, it's really hard to defend against that. So there is going to have to be, probably an integration of artificial intelligence into defensive capabilities. It's also going to really rely on the ability of the intelligence agencies to assess exactly what technologies were employed and what techniques were employed, because the tactics and techniques are going to be critical to countering them. An understanding of that is going to be key.
It's impressive. The U.S. Pilot ejected in Iran, but was still rescued by U.S. military personnel.
Absolutely, and that speaks to a whole realm of combat search and rescue capabilities that are basically generations, light years ahead of what happened back in 1980 when we attempted the hostage rescue mission. The interoperability at that time, back in 1980, was far less than what it is today. This was a textbook rescue operation and was executed based on all accounts that we have right now, almost flawlessly. There were some issues with aircraft having to be left behind, and basically blown up on the makeshift field, but that's, something that's relatively minor compared to saving not only the pilot's life, but all the rescuers' lives as well.
And it's incredible when you learn about this technology that there weren't more casualties or deaths or anything from from the pilot, the WISO, and all the rescuers involved, right?
Absolutely, yeah, because normally the WISO's job, or weapons systems officer's job, is to really be able to help defend the aircraft against threats of any type, but specifically electronic threats. And this kind of an operation may either take place in a frequency, the command and control frequency, that would be something that is not being picked up by our aircraft. That's a possibility. Or it may be done in a way where there is no radio transmission, where the systems operate autonomously and they've been pre-programmed to go after certain target sets. And the F-15 may have been a target of opportunity, or it may have been something that they had pre-planned and were basically willing to test this tactic against a flying manned aircraft that the U.S. Air Force was flying.
The other thing, Sabrina, if true, is it shows the Iranians still have advanced drone technology and capability, that it has not been destroyed in this war. Just like now we've learned that their missile capabilities have not been destroyed. They still have enriched uranium, which was not completely destroyed. So what does that tell us about what was accomplished up until that point in the war?
Well, what it tells us is that the U.S. military, while it was effective in degrading the Iranian Navy and Air Force, Iran still maintains and retains quite incredible capabilities. I mean, this new reporting, and as Cedric laid out, if this is true, is very complex and something that if Iran is able to execute on the battlefield is really going to change how modern wars are already being fought. I mean,
And there it is. This could change how modern wars are fought, not in 10 years or in some theoretical future, but right now. After everything the U.S. military threw at Iran, including strikes, bombing, and attempts to weaken its capabilities, Iran still has this. The drones survived, the missile capabilities survived, and the enriched uranium survived. So what did we actually accomplish? From where I am sitting, we discovered that Iran has weapons our intelligence agencies did not know about, our jets cannot defend against, and our enemies may have helped build. That is not a victory. It is a wake-up call. If this footage, the debrief, and the reporting do not start a serious conversation about what comes next, then we are watching the same movie and waiting for a sequel nobody wants to see. Subscribe to stay ahead of this story, because it is far from over.
we're seeing that how drones are impacting the battlefield, both in Iran and, of course, in Ukraine. And so the fact that Iran is able to not only retain these drone capabilities, the United States has expended an incredible amount of military might. And just tomorrow, Pete Hegseth is going to go on the Hill and ask for $80 billion more to fund this war and to backfill our stocks. So I think if this story and the reporting holds true, Iran is really going to change the modern battlefield and also how the U.S. purchases its own arms and thinks about future wars.
If Iran really has a drone swarm capable of overwhelming an F-15, then this is bigger than one downed aircraft. It means the balance of power in the sky may already be shifting, and the U.S. military could be facing a threat it was never prepared for. So what do you think? Is America ready for this new kind of warfare, or did Iran just reveal the weapon that changes everything? Let me know in the comments, hit like, and subscribe, because this story is only getting started.